welcome to the 26th episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. My today's guest, Jessica Jamison, is a licensed mental health counselor and certified personal trainer, offering both services inside her business, Revolution Health. She supports chronic dieters in finding peace with food, fitness, and their bodies. Her specialties in therapy include binge eating, emotional eating, and body image. For personal training, she specializes in helping those with mental health challenges, anxiety, depression, EDs, ADHD, etc., to feel strong and confident physically through strength training and intuitive movement. She practices from a non-diet, weight-inclusive, and health at every size approach. If you can't tell by her credentials, she's passionate about the mind-body connection. As someone who recovered from an ED and overexercise and hated her body for years, she gets it. Today, she loves lifting weights almost as much as she loves eating donuts. Jess is also a mom of two who enjoys spending time with her family on their many adventures. Welcome, Jess, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Marta. Happy to be here. I was very excited for this.
I'm so excited about our conversation as well. Would you be able to choose one of your origin stories and tell me how has it happened that you're now supporting so many people, including, I think, like women with their body image, with their mental health, with so many other things that I've just mentioned. How has it happened? And
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as my introduction kind of shares, I landed here in the eating disorder body image space because I struggled so much when I was younger. So I, I took a psychology class in high school. And I grew up watching a TV show out here in the US called Dr. Phil with my mom. And it was just like a therapist on TV, right? Not real at all, probably totally scripted, just for entertainment. But that was my first exposure to like being a therapist, were those two things, right? The show and then a psychology class. And I had decided that that's what I wanted to do very, very early on in high school. And part of it, though, and I didn't realize any of this at the time, was because I had an undiagnosed eating disorder, right? So, and again, I didn't realize any of this until I was much, much older, learned more about it, and realized like how much I was struggling. I thought everything that I was doing, all my thoughts, everything I was feeling about myself, my eating habits, my body was totally normal. I also went to an all-girls high school, so I don't think that helped. So yeah, so I went to college. I studied psychology. I got my landed in a family therapy program for grad school. And what happened was I was miserable. I absolutely hated. I was still, again, very much struggling with my own mental health, specifically around food and fitness. And I was just so miserable, and I decided I don't want to be a therapist anymore. I was completely burnt out already. So I did just enough to get my postgraduate hours. Again, here in the US, you need about 2 years after grad school to get licensed. Took the licensing exam and I quit. I left. I then pursued personal training, started part-time, worked my way up to full-time. I was then managing a small studio by the time that I had my son, and also decided that that wasn't working for me anymore. Even though I loved it, it was more of a schedule thing with kids, right? It was just personal training was either early morning hours or late night hours, and it just didn't work with me having a family anymore. But all along that time, I kind of realized, right, as I'm helping women with weight loss, I'm realizing I'm encouraging the same behaviors that hurt me. So, things like constantly weighing yourself, checking your body fat percentages, making sure that you're getting 10,000 steps a day, working out and lifting 5 days a week, minimal rest, restricting food groups, right? Like, working on cutting out sugar and processed foods and low carb diets and all of that was what caused my mental health to really crumble and my body image to crumble. And it just didn't feel aligned. And so eventually I opened my own business, and I've had my private practice in therapy for just over a year now. I've been offering personal training virtually for much longer than that. But yeah, I get to do both. And it made sense that I landed kind of in the eating disorder body image space. I work mainly with women, but on both sides, my therapy clients and my personal training clients, they all tend to struggle with their mental health.
Okay, what a beautiful
I tried to keep
introduction.
it short.
Yeah, no, don't keep it. And there's so many angles we can take that conversation. Well, I'm so curious because I think it's so important. I'm all about intuitive choices in life. And would you be able to share a little bit with the viewers and listeners about your approach to intuitive exercising, intuitive eating? Why do you think it's important? Why can it
Yeah,
support us at so
of,
many levels?
of course. Yeah. So I think something that here in the US, we use the term like diet culture. And again, in Scotland,
Mhm.
I don't know if that term resonates at all,
It does.
but it's this constant pressure to look a certain way and follow all of these external diet rules or exercise rules that you're getting from marketing and all these programs just constantly coming at you. So when we look at like intuitive movement, intuitive eating, we're bringing it back to your rules and what you want for yourself and listening to your body. And I actually don't consider myself like a very intuitive person, right? Like that was really, really hard for me and still is, right? I'm always working on it. But I think like we do have to understand like what is intuition before we can practice intuitive
Hmm.
movement and intuitive eating. So that ability to understand something, without the need for conscious reasoning or without the need to like think about it or use reason to discover it, right? So, intuitive eating, right, is the ability to just trust your body to make food choices that feel good for you, right? Without judging yourself for them.
Hmm.
Because we're so used to get all of those external rules coming from all of the diets. And then same thing on the movement side, right? We're moving in a way that feels good for us versus how we're being told is good for our health and our weight and our bodies.
Hmm. And this is so beautiful because this is what I want to teach my children, especially my daughter
Yeah.
right now. She's only 8, yet I can see there's so much pressure, and she's already been telling me a year ago about her needing to not eat breakfast or needing to go to the gym to lose weight. And I'm like, where is it coming from? So I think it's so important for us to be examples. I think this is the most important as
Yeah.
parents, so that she can maybe go through a different uh, path in terms of her accepting her body and herself the way she is.
Yeah.
Uh, One thing, well, there are many things that I want to comment on. I used to be a prisoner of various diets as well. I remember throughout my teenage years, then there were various diets there was that pressure from the society of
Hmm.
me needing to try various things, and that caused so much dysregulation. My hormones were dysregulated, and I also was on that side of over exercising, which really impacted my periods. They disappeared.
Hmm.
And I think you can be a prisoner of both dieting, but also I have a background in sports. This is what I studied. So I used to be the person who actually calculated my body fat, the one who calculated my RMI, the one who over exercised. Uh, and the same, I was so mindful of the calories. I had every meal planned, and I knew exactly
Hmm.
the content of like protein, fat, and like how liberating it was when I decided to ditch it, stop it, and I intuitively eat right now what it is that I want. It is my choice that I use the scale, the kitchen scale, when I want to lose healthy a little bit of weight, and then I'm mindful of the things that I eat for breakfast that maybe have a little bit more calories, and that supports me. That's as far as I go. But the rest, I just eat whatever my body feels like. And my main, well, the way I see food is I want to eat the food that loves me back, the food that is going to
Ooh,
make me feel
yeah,
well. So this is the way I approach food. So yeah, it's very
I love
interesting
that.
what
Yeah,
you're doing.
and your history, Marta, sounds like a lot like mine, right? Like that, those were all the things I was doing. I was also an athlete. I was a varsity tennis player. And so yeah, there's, all of that talk is just constant, right? And it's not like, coaches and everyone, they want the best for us. They want us to perform well as athletes, but so much of it is harmful, right? Like I was doing the same thing. I had 3 different macro slash calorie counting apps on my phone. And I was
Mhm.
putting all of my everything that went in my mouth into 3 different apps
Yeah.
a day,
Yes.
right? That was
So much
crazy.
pressure.
So it was taking up so much time. And I also lost my period for many years, and I think that's when I kind of realized that what I was doing was more harmful, and I thought it was healthy, right? I thought everyone counted calories.
Mm-hmm.
I thought everybody spent 2 hours a day at the gym, plus, right? I thought everybody was like jogging in the bathroom stall to try to hit their step goal. Like I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was normal. But then I struggled to get pregnant. And that was a huge sign for me that this isn't healthy. Like my body couldn't get pregnant. Like I wasn't, what I was doing was not right. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't healthy. I couldn't carry a pregnancy and I was undiagnosed infertility. So there was like no
Mm-hmm.
reason. And it was amazing that when I stopped doing all of those things, I now have 2 kids. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right when I slowed down and started listening to my body, um, I was able to get pregnant naturally.
Mm-hmm. So important. And what I've realized, and this is my biased opinion, is as well that uh, as women, it's so much better for us to have a slightly higher fat level than men.
Hmm.
This is how it allowed at least me to balance all of my hormones, because I
Yeah.
used to have that six pack and low body fat content in the past, and then I gave birth and then it disappeared. But somehow throughout the years, then I've never felt better in my body and health wise the way I
Hmm.
feel now. So
Oh,
I'm
I love
curious
that.
about your perspective about that, because I don't see, well, I still want to have my six pack, and but there's like no, I don't put pressure that I need to have it, and
Hmm.
I don't really check my fat content. It's more how I feel in myself, and I do whatever supports me intuitively. So I'm curious about your view on
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. When we make these shifts, right, to a more intuitive approach, we don't necessarily know how your body is going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for someone like me who was underweight and I started making shifts towards intuitive eating and intuitive movement. Did I gain weight? Yeah, I did, right? A little bit. But I needed to. My body needed to, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
spent so much of my life fighting that. I've seen some women who make these shifts and they do lose weight, right? That's not necessarily the goal. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't do intentional weight loss, but
Yes.
does it happen for some women? Yeah, it does, right? Like it's almost like this side effect of these shifts that you're making. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we don't really know how your body's going to respond. So sometimes, right, there does have to be a level of acceptance. And I work on that with my clients. I do so much body image work around like you know, those thoughts, right? And a big thing that I think you said that I loved was we want to allow those thoughts to be there. Like it is not inherently bad to wish that you were in a smaller body or to wish that you had a six pack again, right? Like we don't want to
Mm-hmm.
criticize or judge ourselves for those thoughts. Like let them be there. And they don't necessarily have to impact how we show up in our daily lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Oh, I've seen you speaking on Instagram recently. I think this is so important. So many of the viewers and listeners would want to know because I support women on their self-love. And then in my mediumship, like whatever I help people with, it is with their human experience. So I think it's so
Hmm.
nice that we can have that conversation. But how to focus on ourselves while supporting our partner on their journey? Because I really find it so interesting because um, I was in a relationship where my partner was not into sports at all. So me
Mm.
going to the gym was so difficult because he would have preferred me to stay at home, which was a different scenario. But then I also dated someone who was so much into sports and into the diet culture, into calculating macros. So how do you juggle that intuitive eating, exercising, and at the same time, how you can support your partner with whatever he thinks it is best for him?
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard, right? And I'm in a situation now. My husband lives a very different lifestyle than I do. And many women that I work with, their partners, their husbands, their spouses, they're right, they're still very much living this like life that is controlled by diet culture because they don't know any better, right?
Mhm.
And so the woman that I'm working with, we're learning all of these new approaches, these new movements. We're learning about health at every size and intuitive movement, intuitive eating, or just mindful eating. Um, and it's so different. It is so different. So I think there's a couple of things that I would recommend doing to start. But this is like a very deep conversation, I think, and it's going to be a
Mhm.
little bit different for everyone in every
Of
relationship.
course.
But I always encourage my clients to set boundaries. So if your partner is talking about things that you find triggering, we got to let them know, right? So maybe it's just that you say, like, you know what, I prefer that you don't tell me what you weighed in the morning, right? Maybe you just don't want to hear numbers. That's
Mhm.
very triggering for a woman, especially when their partner reaches a weight loss goal that they want so badly for
Mhm.
themselves. Um, Set boundaries around how you talk about food in your house. I think, especially if you have kids, because they hear you,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So
Mhm.
maybe you decide to work together, even though your approaches are different, you're going to work together on like not calling foods good or bad.
Mhm.
Um, Setting boundaries around, again, calorie counting, those kind of things. Like maybe you just don't want to hear the specific numbers. They're going to make their choices, and that's not within your control. But I want women to feel comfortable setting the boundaries around, like, no, this doesn't sit well with me, can we not talk about that?
Mhm.
And then we really want to work on finding where we can connect with our partner. So we're going to validate their experiences and their emotions, because you can connect to those things, right? Your partner and you probably both know what it's like to live in a body that you're uncomfortable with,
Mhm.
right? So you're going to validate that experience for them, right? You can say that, like, I know that you're making these changes because you're really uncomfortable, and I know what that's like. Um, Bringing it back to listening to your body, right? So, wow, it really looks like, you're eating in a way that suits you today, right? Like, it really looks like you're listening to your hunger right now, and you're maybe you're skipping this meal because you're not hungry, and that's okay, right? So bringing it back to how they're listening to their body, or how you see that they're doing that, to give them a little bit of that education, right, around it. Um, but yeah, those are two tips. Does that answer a little bit of,
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think it's a
good.
beautiful introduction for anyone who's maybe curious about that.
Yeah.
And what about intuitive body movement? How can we start intuitive exercising? I know the
Yeah.
best would be to find a professional like yourself, but if there is no one available, like how can we start?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And I do have a free intuitive 5-day intuitive movement challenge
Okay,
that's specifically designed for this.
perfect.
I ask myself, for intuitive movement, I ask myself 3 questions, right, on a daily basis. So I'm a personal trainer. I program workouts for people, and I also program my own, right? So yes, I do go into workouts with a specific structure in
Mm-hmm.
lots of fitness goals, right? But we can bring in that intuitive part with just a few simple questions to ask ourselves and really slow down and think about what we want, what we need for the day in terms of movement. So every day, right, we want to check in with ourselves. I check in with all my clients when they sign on Zoom. This is the first question I ask. How is your body feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do a quick scan. Aches and pains anywhere. Is anything super sore? Is anything super tight? Right? We're looking for those kind of things. Um, and then what are your intentions for movement or exercise or workout, whatever word you want to put in there? Um, you know, do you really want to feel like you got in a good workout? Do you want to feel your heart rate up? Do you want to feel like you broke a good sweat? Or do you just kind of want to feel at peace, right? Like, do you just want to feel relaxed? Do you just want to get out of your head for a little bit? Um, Maybe you just want to get outside, right? Like what are you looking for in movement? And then the last one is what type of movement would bring me joy? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I love lifting. I love seeing myself get stronger. Not everyone loves that, and that's okay, right? Like I don't like Zumba. I don't like dance style workouts. But
Mm-hmm.
if that brings you joy, then we want to go do that.
Mm-hmm. This
Um,
is so important what you're
yeah.
mentioning.
Yeah. So those are in and again, I could talk about this all day, but I think
Oh yes,
learn
yes.
to ask yourself, those three questions, and then starting to slowly challenge the rules around exercise that you've been exposed to, right? So this idea that like cardio is better for weight loss, or I'm talking, you got to get so many steps a day. That you have to do upper and lower body splits to see progress. Like I want women to start challenging those things because you need to do what's best for you, right? In your
Mm-hmm.
body, and not something that like some Instagram influencer told you about.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I'm very much connected to my intuition myself, but I was surprised, or maybe nothing surprises me, but I was able to find for myself over a year ago. Well, I used to be a fan of aerobox. That's what I did as a cardio on top of the lifting weights. But then I realized there was a pattern that every time I finished that workout, I ended up having migraines. I used to be in a
Oh,
very abusive relationship. I suffered from CPTSD, anxiety, and basically my cortisol levels were like so high. And actually, I realized there was that pattern, and that didn't support me at that particular moment because of my life experiences. And actually, lifting weights brings me so much joy. Well, I'm not a fan of a
yeah,
cardio, but lifting weights, well, I lift weights 5 times a week because it works for me intuitively and it supports my mental health. But I never get anxiety or any like negative symptoms from that. But it was very interesting that I was even able to mention to my trainer last week because he suggested I could maybe introduce some HIIT trainings. And I'm like, no, first of all, I can't do it because I don't like to be told what to do. I like to have my workout and I like to be in my own like head. This is just my time. But also, I was able to support myself and tell him like, no, I can't because of the history of
yeah,
anxiety. This is
yeah.
definitely not going to be good for me. So I do run. Like this morning, I did my 5K. This is as far as I go, but it doesn't make me feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And but you had to learn that about yourself, right? Like you had to really slow down and take a good look at what you were doing that was so damaging to your mental health, right? And your body and your stress levels. And so we don't know all the time, and that's okay. Like I know that I don't love those kind of workouts. Like I don't love Zumba kind of workouts. I don't
I, mhm.
right, like because I've done it, right? I've done it all. And that's the
Yes.
second piece of advice I would give is go experiment, right? Like if you don't know what HIIT is, right? If you don't know what we're talking about, go try it, right? It's not gonna hurt you to try it once. And then again, ask yourself some of these questions, right? How is my body feeling after this HIIT workout, right? Like, how is it feeling after a 5K? Did it bring me joy, right? So you can kind of do these reflections before and after. And then I think you said something really, really important that not many people kind of understand unless you do it. But with weightlifting, right, for people who struggle with their mental health, so specifically like anxiety, it can be very grounding. So like I'm not big on like meditation and journaling. Like I honestly, I'll tell people they should go do that kind of thing if it works for them as a therapist, right? All the time. Like, have you tried this?
Yes.
I've tried it. It doesn't specifically work for me, but that's part of why I love lifting weights, right? Like I love feeling like my feet on the floor, like starting to lift, getting my body set up, connecting with my breath that's going to, right? Like breathing in and out a certain way that's going to allow me to lift this heavy weight properly, right? Slowing down, focusing on form. And when we're in that moment, right, all of this other stuff gets out of our brain and we're so much like in the present. And it can really, really help with anxiety and other and other mental health challenges.
I love it because I perceive lifting weights as a type of meditation myself. And when I work with my clients and I mention about meditation, I also tell them about lifting weights. I also perceive sex as a type of meditation, but that's another subject. It would be completely off tangent today. Okay, well, could you talk a little bit more about how intuitive exercising or like moving your body, how connecting to your body and eating mindfully can support your mental health for anyone who's struggling with various mental health problems?
Yeah, and I think we've kind of talked a lot about this. I think in general, it's making that shift to doing what feels best for you, right? And it's setting the boundaries around that as well. Like, so when we talk about mental health, we talk a lot about self-care. And I think that like people have like a lot of like misconceptions about what self-care should look like, right? Like we think like, oh, it should look like getting our nails done and going for a massage or taking a vacation. I mean, it can, right? Those are all great things. But it's also, right, it's also setting boundaries, listening to your needs, like, and what, and pursuing like what you want for yourself. And I think, intuitive movement, intuitive eating allows us to really do that. And don't get me wrong, like it's a big shift. It's very difficult to do when you're so used to all of those rules. But when we let go of the rules, there's a lot less to be anxious about. Right?
Definitely.
Right? We think that it's helping us. We think that all of that talk, right, of those shoulds. I think I talk about that all the time with clients. Like these shoulds are bringing you down so much. We've got to let them go. We think that they're helping us. We think that they're serving us in some way. They're going to keep us on track, right? They're going to keep us healthy. But in reality, that is what's causing a lot of those anxious thoughts, a lot of that feeling really down about ourselves because we're not living up to expectations, right? So we can get rid of it and focus on what's best for you. Your mental health is in a much better place.
And coming back to the body image, if you can talk a little bit, because I know, again, it will be the intuitive eating, intuitive exercising that's going to support, but this is such a big theme for both for my clients, but also I can see for my children, because I remember, again, something that popped into my mind 2 years ago. I remember I lifted my son's t-shirt and then I told him, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, no, this is my tummy. I need to go to the gym and I need to start exercising." I'm like, "No, you're zip. Like you need to go to school, like put your trousers properly." And what's been happening is that my ex-partner would shame my son for being fat because he's like very, very thin. And then I needed to speak with the school to be on the same side, and I explained to him like there's nothing wrong with you. And my son is into sports
Mhm.
as well, but even if he wasn't, he's still a child. He's growing.
Yeah.
But I was in shock because I commented on him not being properly dressed for school. And here he came, oh yeah, already with that external voice of needing to change something. And there
Yeah.
was a very long time when I think I've told you when my daughter refused to eat breakfast because it came from my ex as well, commenting that she wasn't fit enough. So I'm curious because it's so important as well to know how to support our children. So body image, we can support children, and body image, like ways women can support
Yeah.
themselves.
Oh, geez. Where do I start? Okay. Okay. Well, first, like hearing that stuff like that just totally breaks my heart, right? That your kids have to go through that. So like that's just it's none of that. Nothing about that is okay. And like I have two kids. I have a son and a daughter. They're a little bit younger than yours, but that's constantly something that I'm thinking about, right? Is how do I not like how do I help my daughter not be me, right? Like, and I know
Mm-hmm.
like I can't do that, but like what can I influence, right? Um, so I think the way that you talk to yourself is going to help you so much with your body image and if you have children and what you want to role model for them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts are going to be connected to our emotions, which are then going to, right, connect to our behaviors or our actions. So with the body image, right, it's all going to start with how we're thinking and talking to ourselves, right? So I would start there, right? Like, right, do a little body image journal. Like, what are those thoughts, those negative thoughts that you're having when you look in the mirror, when you get dressed in the morning, right? Start there. Just acknowledge them. That's it. We're just writing them down. We're getting them out. We're not judging ourselves for having them. You're human. You're going to have them. And then, right, we want to look at how they're impacting how we're feeling, right? So a lot of women will often say, like, I feel fat. That's not feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's something deeper there. So it's that emotional awareness, right? Um, and then we work on the behaviors. Um, so yeah, so I think that self-talk, right? Like how are we talking to ourselves and recognizing that, you know, you're not going to have perfect body image days all the time, right? So I like to
Mm-hmm.
say like sometimes like that body image, that positive body image is like a roaring lion. Like you really, really feel it that day. And sometimes it's like this quiet little mouse, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's there, but you got to work really, really hard to
Mm-hmm.
hear it. And that's okay. That's totally normal. And we need to accept that. And then I find personally, and for a lot of my clients, that really working on this idea of body neutrality fits a little bit better than that body positive, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think body positivity is a wonderful thing. Like if you can get there, that's amazing. So many of us can't. So we talk a lot about more body neutrality. So this idea that um you just exist in your body and it's not like good or bad. Like we don't have to love it all of the time, but we're paying more attention to how it allows us to function in the world and how it allows us to like experience our life, right? Like it's just like I hate that phrase. Like it's kind of like our vessel, but that's like I guess that's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so moving towards that, like how does your body allow you to function and show up in your life and right experience everything that it lets you do and having some appreciation and respect for that because the reality is that not everybody, right? Not everybody lives in a body that allows them to experience the world the way that you do. So
Mm-hmm.
things like, being really thankful that you have really strong legs that allow you to run a 5K or allow you to like walk through the Disney World parks. Being really thankful that like, you know what, like you have two arms that allow you to carry your children around or being thankful that expressing gratitude that you had a body that allowed you to carry children, even though it's changed,
Mhm.
Um,
This one works
yeah.
so much, and I do it regularly as well. And then I encourage my children as well. It has
Yeah.
worked for me throughout the years. And initially, it was a very odd sensation, like starting
It
being
can
grateful for
be,
various. And I'm like, why am I?
yeah.
But it actually does work, and it allows you to tap into that unconditional love towards yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. Mhm. If you were to recommend maybe 3 books that people could maybe start reading or maybe listening to some audiobooks, what would you say? Do you have anything that comes to your mind, something that would start them on an intuitive self-exploration journey in terms of the body image and moving their body?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the original book on intuitive eating by Evelyn Tribone, I think that's how you say it. Super easy to find. You can just find it on Amazon. You can listen to the audio book or buy the hard copy. But that's a wonderful place to start if you're looking for support around food. And then I love like workbooks. So I have one that's like the body image workbook. I think that's actually what it's called. Um, and that's gonna take you through like a lot of that, right? Just processing that body image stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but give you kind of like things to do on a daily basis. So the body image workbook. And then I specifically have for my parents with teens, I have an intuitive eating book for teens. So the intuitive eating workbook for teens is just what it's called. And I think
Okay.
if you're, especially if you're a mom of teenagers who are starting to figure some of this stuff out, they're starting to ask questions, they're starting to like
Mhm.
understand like what diets are and like should I look a certain way. I think that can be a really supportive book. So those are I think the big 3 that I use. There's another one and I'm blanking on the name. I wish I had it with me. I don't remember the author, but it's like an intuitive movement journal that's also really good.
Okay. Like it.
Um, yeah, I can look it up real quick, but if again, you could probably just search for intuitive movement journal and it would come right up.
Mhm.
But the author takes you through the process of like becoming an intuitive mover. And again, how to listen to your body, how to ditch some of the exercise rules and get to a place where, you can be a little bit more intuitive, right? Because as I said, like this does take some work for those of us who are so used to all of those external rules and pressures.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm going to check those books myself because my son is about to do his gym induction. Because he knows his mom goes to the gym, so I think it's the right moment to give him
Oh
maybe
yeah.
audiobooks or like some books so he can maybe be exposed to something more intuitive before he gets so much aware of
Oh
the
yeah, I love that.
diet culture and everything mainstream. So thank you so much. That's very useful. And what's the final thought or anything that you would like to leave the viewers and listeners with?
Oh, final thoughts. I think a lot of what they've heard today is probably very different, right? And again, like especially in the US, and it kind of sounds like culture is very similar in Scotland. Um, I think just be open, right, to it. I think dip your toe in it, right? Kind of explore some of these ideas, try them on. You can always go back, right? If it's not working for you, you can always go back. But I think just kind of dip your toe in it, see how it feels. Because you might be surprised, as you said, like how freeing it can be to live on the other side and just let go of all of those society's expectations of how to eat, how to move, and how to look. And also on the flip side, like it takes a lot of work and be patient with yourself. Like if you do
Mm-hmm.
want to move towards some of this, like it is not going to happen to you overnight. You're going to have ups and downs and it's okay, right? It doesn't mean that it's bad or that you should stop. It's just we just got to keep working, right? I think you and I are evidence that if you really want this, like if this really resonates with you, you can get there. I truly do hold hope for every woman out there that healing is possible.
Mhm. Thank you so much. And finally, how can people work with you and where can they find you? And I'm going to include all of the links to your social media and programs, but anything that you would like to share with the viewers and listeners about your offerings, programs, please do.
Yeah, sure. So I can work with people anywhere. It just has to be kind of called something different. For therapy, I can only take clients in Massachusetts in the US because that's where I'm licensed. But it doesn't mean that we still can't do the work if you live somewhere else. We just call it coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I work with you in a coaching capacity versus as your therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then personal training, all of my services are virtual there as well. So again, I can work with clients anywhere. I do one-to-one over Zoom, or if there's another platform that you prefer, we can look into it. And it's all from the comfort of like your own home. Like you don't have to be in a gym or anything. And I work with the equipment that you have or that you want to get. So it's super simple, just very comfortable and convenient. I think working out at home is so convenient. And then, yeah, you can find me. I'm mainly active on Instagram at Jess B. Jamison. And then I do have a free Facebook community called Dumbbells and Donuts, which is food, fitness, and
Mm-hmm.
body image support for women. And anyone can join and have full access to me and what I do, and lots of resources there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Jess. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I think it was like, well, I'm sure it was such a meaningful conversation, and it's going to help so many people. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely loved being here.
And I want to say goodbye to all of the viewers and the listeners. Goodbye.
Bye.